All right, well, welcome everybody to the NextCycle Washington Renewed Seed Grant launch. We are glad you could join us today. My name is Kimberly Velasquez Gutierrez, and I am with Recycling Resource Systems, and I will be your host today. So we'll get into a couple of housekeeping. First, we have muted everyone during the session, but that doesn't mean we don't want to hear from you. So please use the Q&A panel session to submit questions throughout the session. Using this function will help us keep these questions organized when we're ready for the Q&A session. And finally, the webinar is being recorded. This recording will be available over the next couple of days, so be on the lookout for that. We will also be sharing URLs throughout the session in the chat section that kind of go hand in hand with what our speakers will be presenting on. So let's go ahead and welcome our speakers. We have Rob Duff from Washington State Department of Commerce. Then we have Bryce Hesterman, who is a project manager for NextCycle Washington. Liz Smart, who is one of our track leads for this project, and Kamal Patel, who has been leading the charge to ensure that this project is equitable and inclusive. So we'll walk through the agenda just to set expectations of what we will be going over this afternoon. First, we will hear from Rob to talk about why NextCycle exists and who are all the parties that are involved. Part one will be led by Bryce, who will talk about NextCycle Washington and its structure. For part two, we'll have Liz, who will go over the Renewed Seed Grant program, specific requirements pertaining to the grant, along with walking through the application. And then we'll have Kamal join us, and he will talk about how the program is lowering barriers. And lastly, we're going to wrap up with the Q&A. As a reminder to use that Q&A function throughout the session. Don't wait if you have a question, just send those in. And now I'm going to hand it on over to Rob.
Thanks very much, Kimberly. Very, very happy to be here to help launch this part of NextCycle Washington seed grants in particular. And folks can see on the screen here that this is a partnership of local and state agencies and the excellent consultants that are going to be presenting this to you and whom you probably all know. I work for the Washington State Department of Commerce as their Sustainable Business Development Director. And one of the ways that we helped get started here was through that icon that you see on the bottom right called the Washington Recycling Development Center. This was an initiative, well, I shouldn't say initiative, this was a state law that was passed in 2019 that dealt with the difficulties when China, through their sword regulation, started giving us fits about what we are going to do with all of our curbside resources. So during the attempt to clean up those curbside resources and get rid of the contamination, there was some foresight from the legislature that said, well, we should really turn these goods into products right here in Washington, not just try to stuff them back into container ships that are empty and send them back overseas. And so the Recycling Development Center got started shortly thereafter in 2019 and provided some grants, one of them to King County, to start the initial discussions with RS about bringing NextCycle over to Washington. It had already been successful in Colorado and Michigan. And that partnership flourished. Washington State's Department of Ecology got involved. And now you have the launch that is both the Accelerator and the seed grant. And we can move to the next slide. Thank you. Very good. And these consultants have been a pleasure to work with. Very impressive about how they're reaching out to what I like to call not the usual suspects. When we move money in government, whether it's federal, state, or local, we've got a lot of regulations we have to follow, a lot of statute we have to follow. And that often results in only the folks that really know where to look getting the funding. These folks have really broken down those barriers in their co-design process And actually making sure that these grants are easy enough to apply for, they're small enough, that really does stimulate small business in the state of Washington. So really excited to be working with them. And then just a little bit more. Next slide, please. You can see that this is beyond just creating opportunities and launching pads for small business. We really are part of a circular waste economy. There's another program that actually even more recently launched called Industrial Symbiosis, which seeks to turn industrial waste into resource. One industry's resource is a waste is another's resource. And so we're starting to see these policy actions line up with both public interest as well as business interest. I mean, back in the 60s and 70s, when all of our environmental laws landed on business, it was landing on them. They had to readjust from their extractive linear thought process on how to run a business. Now we actually see momentum both at the policy level, the public level, and motivated businesses to think about zero waste. And as part of that, we always have to think about climate action, because as we think about circularity, we are reducing our energy use, we're reducing our water use. It's all about thinking in terms of less waste and more resource and more opportunity. And then finally, Washington State, in my opinion, has been a leader on trying to be more equitable and moving these funds, but it's easier said than done. We've also passed policy, our statute and policy, such as the HEAL Act, to kind of push this along, but it doesn't happen unless you get folks like RRS and their consultants on the ground actually putting it into place. So I'll leave it at that and just let everybody know I'm really excited about the seed grant kickoff, and it's being supported by a lot of hardworking people here. And with that, I'll turn it over to Bryce Hesterman, senior consultant with RRS. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks so much, Rob, and great to see kind of the broad support that the state and local governments have initiated to get this program off the ground. And this is a really exciting milestone here. So I'm going to start with a brief overview of NextCycle Washington program and how we're working to grow an equitable circular economy in the state. And one important piece is shared language. So I'd like to set some context here for what we mean by circular economy and some core principles of this program. So what is the circular economy and why is it important? And this may be second nature to you at this point, but I do want to take a moment just to share this and have some common language. So when you look here on the left side of the screen, over 90% of our products and packaging follow a linear economy. So you take materials, natural resources, we make the product or packaging, we use those items, and then we discard them as waste. Less than 10% of the materials that we work with in products and packaging follow a circular economy, where those products and packaging are recirculated in the economy to be shared, repaired, repurposed, recycled, composted, or processed into a new product. And so NextCycle Washington aims to shift this balance of the dynamic and support businesses and projects that seek to prevent, reuse, rescue, repair, recycle, and recover materials that can be utilized for higher, better use than just burying in the ground. And so basically anything that breaks this linear model into a circular pathway can fit into the program. So this means any type of material, paper, plastic, textiles, e-waste, food waste, agricultural waste, and beyond. And then from any type of generator, residential, commercial, industrial, any solution within that realm could be part of this program. And so we want to kind of define that there. This shift, as Rob kind of alluded to, has tangible economic benefits, as recovering those material as inputs for new products, that creates jobs, more jobs than trucking it and burying it in a hole in the ground. It has environmental benefits, as it replaces the need for virgin materials that have significant impacts associated with resource extraction. And it can have real community benefits as well if it's done right, if those jobs and services create opportunities for overburdened and underserved communities. And so this is really a foundation for NextCycle that I want us all to feel kind of aligned with. Another key principle here is this idea of a platform model. And so how we're seeking to achieve this is really shifting our thinking for how we're thinking about materials management. Historically, this has been really an industrial model with large centralized supply chains and markets where, materials may travel halfway around the world and back. It's no surprise that it was this market disruption with the China National Sword Policy that spurred a lot of this action. And so we're trying to respond to that, where efforts, previously had been done in silos without considering opportunities to benefit from synergies with the local economies. And so in this program, we're seeking to shift this to a networked platform model that really engages participation at many scales, develops local and regional supply chains, and depends strongly on collaboration, innovation, and partnership. To de-silo our world, we need to network them, and to create lasting impact, we need to bring in communities that have been left out of the historical industrial model of recycling. And so NextCycle is a space to come together through formal and informal partnerships to advance the circular economy. So now I'm going to go into a little bit into the program itself and where you might fit in as an applicant. So the basic model of NextCycle was developed by RRS, the firm that I work for, as a recycling market development strategy to complement a more traditional state grant funding program. It was deployed in Colorado in 2018, adopted in 2020, and here in Washington is the third version of this. And each state is very unique, and it's really exciting what we're doing here in Washington and really advancing the movement forward. And so what NextCycle is, it's a program that provides mentorship, technical support, and access to funding pathways to help circular businesses and projects grow and thrive. And how we do that from an applicant perspective, because this is kind of what this launch here today is talking about, is there's two different ways to participate. The top here, the Circular Accelerator. This is a program that's already underway. It launched in the summer in June, and so that's focusing on early stage projects that have already demonstrated success and are looking to grow. And so the program works with these teams through primarily technical support to work on their business plans, work on their growth plans, help them identify funding to facilitate that growth. We're in the middle of the 2022 cohort, which will run through February 2023, and then we'll have a cohort again next year. But what we're really here to talk about is the Renew Seed grants. And so that actually provides direct funding and early stage business support. So it's funding and support to new ideas, to get new ideas off the ground with the hopes of developing them into projects that eventually can go through the accelerator and then on to much bigger things. And so you'll see here these two halves of the program, they're related to one another. And in large part can be distinguished by the project stage and whether there's direct grant funding. So again, kind of centering the Renew Seed grant, it's focused on earlier stage projects. So if you're in the research stage, trying to understand if there's a market for this product that I'm thinking about, if I need to test these products to make sure that they're actually something that can be accepted in the marketplace. If you're developing an early stage pilot, or also it is supporting early growth and scaling as well. So there is some overlap here. Whereas the Circular Accelerator is really focusing on some of the later stage. So you'll see there's overlap. If you're part of the accelerator, you can apply for the seed grant. Ideally, the path that we see is that folks will apply for the seed grant one year, and then next year be ready to join the accelerator, and then grow beyond that in the commercial landscape. And so that's really where we want to lead from here. So I'm going to pass it to Liz to talk a little bit more about the seed grant and how you can apply.
Thank you, Bryce. I'm so excited to see the participants on the call today and to see what projects you have. So the Renew Seed grant is a really great starting point. And so I love the name of it, that we're planting that seed to really help grow and build and nurture that circular economy here in Washington, and to see you all take part in that. So that's really an exciting part of the NextCycle program. So what the Renew Seed grant provides is it's small grants for early stage projects, early stage business support and planning, and then facilitated network and matchmaking, which I'll talk about a little bit more in the benefits. So the benefits of the Renew Seed grant are you can get up to $10,000 in reimbursable funding for your circular projects that you have or businesses. We're going to help you prepare for growth and scaling to really help you solidify yourself in the circular economy. This also comes with additional technical support that's provided through one-on-one consulting, mentorship. We have a really great network of folks who are well-versed in the circular economy to help with multiple types of projects and helping you get connected to the right folks. And I'm really excited about this portion of it because sometimes just getting that funding isn't enough, especially when you're in that early stage. So we really want to see you grow and thrive and succeed. And so this is a really great part of this grant process. Another way that's a good benefit is networking and partnership facilitation. So there's going to be over 50 groups involved in that next cycle once this grant process is has finished the application cycle, and that will be 16 teams that are currently underway with the Circular Accelerator, and then over 35 teams that will be getting this Renew Seed grant. So there will be a lot of opportunities to connect with other projects to really help you grow and learn from other folks as well. And then there's over 100 different consultants between RRS, Cascadia, Start Consulting, and Traversal Design. And again, these are folks that are very focused in the circular economy, and that's in addition to our great government partners that are helping fund this work and provide their expertise and knowledge. So along the lines of the one-on-one consulting and mentorship, each grant will come with 10 or 15 to 20 hours of technical support, just kind of depending on the need and what type of support that is required for each project. And so you'll be paired with a staff member that's part of the NextCycle Washington team, and who will match you with the appropriate mentors or other consulting services that are needed. So we have to talk about eligibility. Unfortunately, not everyone is eligible, but to be eligible to apply for the Renew Seed grant, it must be a Washington-based project or business, or a project or business that is expanding to Washington with Washington-generated waste materials. The project focus should be research projects, feasibility studies, pilot projects, really that early stage growth that Bryce showed in the comparison chart that showed the Renew Seed grant versus the Circular Accelerator. So we really want to see projects that are focused on keeping materials that would otherwise be wasted in Washington's economy, and keeping that in that circular economy system. And so there's multiple ways that you can engage with that, and that your projects and businesses can engage. So anyone who is part of a private sector business, a nonprofit, community-based organization, an institution, or a tribal nation or tribal organization, those are the groups that are eligible to apply. Individuals or local governments are not eligible to apply. However, we do encourage local governments to partner and work with teams that are eligible under the organization types. And then two, if you're not sure, if you're eligible just based on where you are, if you're planning to expand to Washington, we will have office hours, which I'll talk about in a little bit, to give you some time to talk with the team just to make sure that you meet all the requirements. So some of the expenses, what is eligible? Where can you, spend that up to $10,000 in reimbursable funding? That can come with, if you need additional consulting assistance or legal services outside of what is provided through the NextCycle program, you can use expenses for that. You can get marketing and collateral, any kind of market analysis or feasibility, any events, because we know that kind of is built into marketing and getting folks aware of your projects, related expenses for salary and labor, any kind of prototypes, testing, research and design, any or discovery, and supplies and materials. We do need to note that purchase of equipment or lease or rental is not included for most of the projects. There is a small caveat that if it is a project that is impacting King County, Washington, other than the Seattle area, those are eligible for equipment purchases. So we do encourage you, if you're not sure if an expense is eligible, please reach out to the NextCycle team. We want to make sure that if you're applying for this grant and you are one of the grantees, that all of the expenses that you are incurring for this project are eligible. So check in often with, if you are a grant recipient, with your NextCycle staff member, because we want to make sure that we're setting you up for success and that you are getting fully reimbursed. So always check in on the expenses. So as far as the evaluation of the applications, it's been really exciting. And, one of my many favorite parts of the NextCycle project is just how collaborative it has been with the co-design process that Traversal Design has really worked this project through. And so with that, all of the applications are going to be reviewed by the Renew Seed Grant Governance Circle, which is comprised of 9 members of public agencies, private businesses, and community members. And so they will review the criteria that are listed here, which includes, you get points for each of these items, your project overview, your concept feasibility, and, we want to look at your environmental impact, where's the justice that's involved, what's your equity impact. It's really important to think about how you're involving communities, especially frontline communities, in your project, or thinking about who's going to be served and if it is an equitable service and system. We're going to talk about economic impact. Job creation is really important to sustaining a circular economy. And then you'll share information on your project team and partners. Again, kind of going back to the discussion about, if there are local governments that you can partner with, or even other organizations or businesses, it's a really great way to see yourself succeed. And then we really want to see some strong information on the project budget and outcomes. So once you go into the grant application and the instructions that you can download, which we'll talk about later on, it will share how many points are each of these items are worth. And again, you'll have check-in points throughout that Kamal will talk about later, that we want to support you and make sure that you are getting the information that's needed to have you fill out a successful grant application. So our timeline today, applications are open, which is really exciting. I'm so excited to see what projects come through. So applications open today, and then the application period closes on November 16th. That's a Wednesday. And so that gives you close to 2 months to get all of the information that you need, have appropriate conversations, attend application parties, or get other information. Then December will be spent with our governance circle and community or public partners reviewing all the applications and making final decisions. And we'll be notifying teams in early to mid-January about the selection. And so once those teams have been selected, we'll start an onboarding process and start those one-on-one conversations to pair folks with the NextCycle team member and other mentors and consulting services. And that also kind of kicks off the funding. So as far as the funding, the only expenses that are eligible to be reimbursed must be incurred from the moment that you sign and return your grant, or that you accept your grant and sign off on it, which you'll receive more information if you're a grantee. And so once that's received, then you can begin incurring expenses under the Renew Seed grant. And all of those expenses must be incurred by June 15th, or must be submitted for reimbursement by June 15th, and the absolute cutoff for expenses is June 30th of 2023. So any expenses or costs that are incurred under what would have been the Renew Seed grant are only eligible between the moment you turn in your acceptance letter in mid-January through June 30th is the absolute deadline. And so again, I'm going to keep hammering at this. Please make sure to continue to check in if you're not sure about eligible expenses. We want to make sure you're set up for success. So just to give you just a really exciting starting point, Bryce had mentioned, the idea of the Renew Seed grant is that we see these projects and businesses grow and then become part of the Circular Accelerator for next year. So NextCycle is a team in Michigan that has a really neat project where they're repurposing textile waste from the automotive industry and using it as building installation. And so they started with the similar grant process as the Renew Seed grant in Michigan. And then they moved on to the Circular Accelerator. And then as part of that, they did pitch showcase, and they won that and won the prize money that went with that. And now they're talking to potential investors. So it's really great to see this program go full circle and really show the successes. So we're hoping that a lot of you who are going to apply today that we'll see you in the same role, that we'll see you really go through the NextCycle program and see you thrive and succeed. And we hope in a couple of years that we'll be sharing your story of success about getting investment and seeing you building that circular economy in Washington. So the fun part of how do you actually apply for the Renew Seed grant? So the first step is going to the NextCycle Washington website. And so if you just go there, you'll see apply buttons everywhere in the top right corner. There's an apply page. So once you click on that, you can download the instructions and the guidelines that will describe, give you examples about the program, the information that we're looking for, the criteria that we spoke about that will be evaluated by our governance circle, and it will also share how many points each of those criteria are worth. So make sure that you read through that thoroughly. Then the next step is to go into the grant interface that is, when you go in, it'll say NextCycle, and I think it also say King County. And if you have not done so already, you will need to create a user account. And then from there, then you'll be directed to start filling out your application. The good news is you don't have to fill it out in one sitting. It will save your process throughout. And once you have completed your application process and you have 2 months to do that, and you've submitted it, then you'll get a notification that the application has been received. If it is before the deadline, before November 16th, and you accidentally submit it and you're not quite ready, just email the NextCycle team and we can release that, and you can make edits and changes before that deadline of November 16th. You can also add other folks to collaborate on that application as well. If you need to do that, reach out also to the NextCycle team, and we can help make sure that you have collaborators added to your account. And then we want to see you succeed. We want to see your projects come through in the application, and we want to make sure throughout that you feel supported. So we've shared the application guidelines, which are live on the website now. If needed, we can provide interpretation and translation services. We're still working on that. There's some kinks to be worked out on that, but we want to make sure that we can support as best as we can. There are virtual office hours, so you can sign up for half-hour meetings with the NextCycle team and other mentors to really help walk you through that application process, or if you just need to talk through part of it, we're here for you. We also have a resource library on the website, and then we're going to provide application mentors and application parties, which a lot of that goes into lowering barriers and making this process as accessible as possible. So with that, I'm going to hand it off to Kamal Patel to talk through lowering the barriers in this process.
Thanks, Liz. Awesome. Hi, everybody. My name is Kamal. And like Liz mentioned, I'm helping with lowering barriers for the application process, and also helping build in tools like co-design to help build engagement in the NextCycle ecosystem. So one of our main focuses on lowering barriers is making sure that we build out solutions that co-designers have been helping us part of this process. So just to rewind for a second, this was a co-design process of public, private, and community, and they came together to come up with a few specific solutions to help lower barriers. And so one of those solutions was Applicant Mentors. So the Applicant Mentors are trusted community messengers who recruit and support applicants' journeys through 2 application parties and workshops. And I'll explain that in a moment about parties and workshops. But the mentors, what we learned through the process is that communities need to hear messages about opportunities or solutions from people they trust in their community, so trusted community messengers. And so we've been working on building a network across the state in every region. So right now we've started in King County. This was a King County project, so we have a few focus there that have both urban circular economy support experience as well as rural. We also have someone from the Centralia area who's working with indigenous communities and rural communities. Someone from Okanagan working with rural recyclers. Someone from Ellensburg working on communicating with rural recyclers and reuse communities, as well as Walla Walla with small businesses. We are looking for others in eastern region of Washington. So if you are interested, you can apply to be an applicant mentor. So these are the trusted messengers we're trying to bring together, bring their communities and their networks to application parties. So that's the next slide, please. So the Renew Seed Grant application parties are sessions to help lower barriers to the application process for NextCycle. So this will happen about roughly a month after the application starts. So in October 13th will be the first party from 4 to 5:30 p.m. And we will follow up to people who signed up for this webinar with more details soon. And then the second one will be November 10th from 12 to 1:30 p.m. And these parties are here to help you workshop your applications, help you get started, help you finish. Maybe you have specific questions that can be answered in the room, or help you answer specific types of questions. And then also this will be coupled with one-on-one support. So you can always ask more detailed questions with a one-on-one application support mentor. So yeah, more details to follow on this. We just wanted to kind of let you know that this is an opportunity that you can take advantage of. So from there, I'll pass it on to Bryce. Thank you.
I can
I'm
go
sorry.
ahead and take it from here, Kamal. Thank you to all our speakers for all this great information. I'm going to ask all of our panel to turn on their video and join me on screen. We do have a few questions that we're going to go through. So let's get those going. All right, so our first question, Bryce, I think you could help with this one, is what qualifies as a new business?
Yeah, it's a good question. I see kind of the first two questions are really similar there. And, you know, it's a lot of it is the stage of the project itself. And so there's not like a point in time at which we say, okay, you've been in business for 5 years, you're not qualified. So it's not so much that, but you know, it is a business that is, you know, kind of on a new path, perhaps. So they've, you know, really wanting to integrate circularity into their model at this stage. And so I wouldn't be turned off if you think, you know, I've been in business for a little while, but like I really want to focus on growth and circularity. Like that's possible. What we're trying to avoid is, you know, folks that are very well established, that have a lot of resources, that you know, or, you know, multinational corporations, things like that, that perhaps don't need this type of support. We're really trying to get, you know, focus this support on folks that really need the help. So that's what we're focusing on there. We're happy to, you know, sign up for an office hour if you want to share like specifically what your status is, and we can talk a little bit more about eligibility. But that's the best answer I have is that don't be turned off by that. But we are looking for those that are seeking growth, and it's not just, you know, funding what you're already doing, essentially.
All right, we have a question from Sherry Jackson. Is the $10,000 in grant funding per business?
I guess I'm off mute, so I'll jump in on that one, and then the next one I'll kick to Rob, because that's the hard one, and then we could talk about it together. But yes, up to 10,000 per business. In total funding available, I see at the bottom, we are anticipating giving out 35 to 40 of these seed grants, and so that gives an indication of the amount of funding. And yeah, you know, there's a lot of projects that we're hoping to support here.
All right. So that next question, Rob, is how is the equipment different from materials and supplies?
Yeah, I can't tell you how many conversations I've had with our fiscal people at Commerce about this question. And I think Elizabeth handled it pretty well. If you have questions about that gray area, just ask. And the RS and Traversal and all of the consultants here will get in touch with us, our fiscal people, and we'll have quick turnarounds on those questions. In general, just to give you a background, the idea is that, you know, we can't, and there are probably historical examples of this, folks just buying large pieces of equipment and saying it's going to be project related and it has this much relationship to the project, and then they get to benefit from that for the next 20 years. Cars, computers, things like that. That's why there's care taken about equipment. Materials and supplies are, it's hard, you know, hardware maintenance of things. So a piece of equipment that is purchased as equipment, but anything that's required to maintain that equipment is legitimate. And these are all caveated. So I really would encourage you to ask, because I'm not the fiscal expert on that, but there is reasoning behind that. And materials and hardware and supplies are different. Those are allowed. Equipment is the thing that we're careful about and is generally not allowed. So I would just encourage folks to, if they think they're in a gray area, just ask. And these folks will either answer on their own or they'll answer with the help of Commerce.
And Liz, can you remind us how much total funding is available for the Renewed Seed Grant?
For all the projects or individually, it's $10,000, up to $10,000 per project for eligible expenses. And then that is reimbursed. So your project or business will need to cover the cost, but you can submit for reimbursement on an ongoing basis throughout that timeline from mid-January through June 30th. Absolute deadline, as a reminder, is June 30th. Any expenses incurred after that cannot be reimbursed.
And then we have a question from Carol. Are school programs eligible to apply?
Yes, well, for universities and institutions, I don't know if we've talked about, I guess it depends, like elementary schools and high schools and stuff that we've not come across, but I would say if it is a project, and Bryce, correct me if I'm incorrect on this, but you know, if it's a project that is sustainable and building into the circular economy, then yes, it is an eligible project. If it's something like we want to put, you know, milk dispensers in our school, which is really great, but that's like a one and done project, so that should seek other grant funding.
Yeah, I think one of the key is that, you know, developing circular economy, we're looking for projects that can be self-sustaining over time. And so if it's something where school funding is able to demonstrate that like this project is going to, you know, allow them to bring in additional revenue that can support that in the long term, you know, then I think that it's eligible. But again, like Liz said, if it's a one and done, that's not exactly kind of fitting the goal of this program.
And then another question that came in is, do we have other examples of NextCycle projects that we can share?
So Kimberly, maybe I'll start by kicking that to you about like when the press release for the Accelerator is coming out, because those are some great examples to go off. So we've, you know, to preface this, we've selected 16 teams to be in the Accelerator, and these are some really great examples. And when is that going to be publicly announced, Kimberly?
So that'll be publicly announced in about a week or 2 weeks. In 2 weeks.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we could probably give give you a rundown of some of these projects. Christy, you've been quiet. You want to talk about maybe a couple of your favorite projects that you've seen joining the Accelerator?
Yeah, for sure. So I work a lot in the reusable space, which is why it's been exciting to work on the upstream track. So I co-lead that with Liz, and we've just had some really, I mean, all of them. It's hard to talk about just a few. We have 8 great folks, teams in there. Some that are working with more like traditional kind of like reuse systems in food service or like with packaging, reusable cups and food containers and things like that. So having a closed loop system, but then, eventually expanding that. And then, yeah, just some really cool, some outdoor gear kind of share or gear connection, aspirations and projects that are super awesome, especially coming from, I'm such an outdoors person. So yeah, really cool projects.
Yeah, Liz, do you want to talk about your favorite? I think we can like talk about them. We don't need to be coy. We can, it's just not, publicly announced. So Liz, you want to share your favorite?
Well, I can't They're all my favorites.
That's great.
They're all wonderful. I do see that Lisa with Plover is on the call. That is a really cool project. She was talking to me about it and describing folks who are going in as plovers, as both a noun and a verb and an action. And so her project is going in and basically being an intervention for mainly business or pre-consumer byproduct waste, and finding homes for those materials and really creating a useful life in that. So I really am excited about that project and the projects that Christy mentioned. But it's really exciting. And I will say too, like, especially from, being on the upstream side of things in our circular economy, it's so exciting to see Washington invest so much in these upstream projects.
Great. And then downstream, I'll share a couple, and I like that. These aren't my favorites, that they're all great, but these are some that just come to mind. So there's one project at a South Park that they're developing a anaerobic digester, a small scale, community scale anaerobic digester that's going to be taking food scraps from local restaurants and residents and putting that through the digester and creating biogas and liquid fertilizer, which then they're going to be distributing to customers. Another one is focused on textile waste, and so they developed some technology. They have some intellectual property behind it. They're developing a process to take mixed fiber textiles, so it's cotton, polyester, and elastane, which is really hard to split up, and actually break that down into individual fibers, which can then be respun into yarn and make new clothing out of. So that's a really cool project. Another one is in the plastic space. I know plastics is a big deal. It's also a newer technology. They have some intellectual property to break down PET using enzymes to produce the monomers to then create new resin that's virgin quality that can go into like food grade packaging and stuff. So you see like a range. There's community-based projects. There's kind of advanced, kind of innovative tech-based projects. We're looking for all of that, because it's like we said, it's like this multiple scale type of approach that we want to see, where innovation, partnership, connections with the community are all really woven together in this ecosystem.
That's awesome. So Bryce, I know we talked earlier on in the presentation where kind of the path we want to see for teams is applying to the grant program and then moving into the accelerator. But what about if we have a project that's in the accelerator now? Can they apply for the grant?
They can apply for the grant, yeah. And so they're not mutually exclusive. So those that are in the accelerator can also apply for the grant. We do, there will be some considerations, I think, in the selection to make sure that resources are being shared equitably and broadly. And so, we want to make sure that not to provide all the support to some few, but yeah, it's definitely eligible.
So Mike says that their organization generates a lot of recyclable waste. They don't have a business idea, but are we able to recommend ways to identify projects that could utilize this waste?
I was going to pause to let someone else answer because I'm talking a lot, but I think that's a good way. Like we didn't talk about this yet, but there's a form on the website. It's called the Get Involved form. And so that's an opportunity where we're creating a kind of directory of folks that are active in this space. And so you can go on there, put in on your, talk about, what you're generating and what you're looking for, and that can be shared publicly, and that lets us know what you have to work on. I would suggest you reach out to us in office hours, because through that we might be able to connect you with a partner that does have a business idea. That would be the best case scenario, is if someone with a business idea, which often in these circular businesses, a constraint is what we call feedstock. So like materials that can actually be inputs in their system. And it might be that you have a great feedstock for one of these business ideas and you could become a partner. So definitely reach out to us. And we can talk one-on-one and try to connect you with a partner in this application phase. There's other things that we can steer you to as well. I'll give a little plug to the Washington Materials Marketplace. That's a place where folks can list the materials that they're generating, and then other people can go there. It's kind of open source to understand what materials they might use for their as inputs to their processes.
I think some of the schools too, like University of Washington, have a lot of innovation happening around that too. And so I think too, if presented with, here's our problem material, it's really great to kind of see a lot of that development and innovation that's coming out of those programs.
All right, well, we have a couple of minutes. I haven't seen any new questions come in. So I'd like to take this time to welcome any closing remarks from our speakers, maybe honing in on a key takeaway that you'd like to leave the audience with.
I would like to start because I forgot something in my part of the presentation, and I saw a question come through that said, what is a TIN? And so I did not address the UBI or TIN. So UBI stands for Unique Business Identifier, and that's a statewide number that's assigned to the business or project or nonprofit. And then TIN is tax identification number, and that comes from the federal government. So you don't need one of those numbers to apply for the Renew Seed grant. However, you will need to have a UBI and a tax ID number once you are in the mode to start receiving funding if you're one of our grant recipients. So throughout that process, our teams are here to help you and make sure that we can get you into the right places and provide you that information on making sure that you can get that information that you need. So again, that's the UBI number and the TIN. So we'll have that information for you. It's also, there's links on the application itself. And then just one other thing, if you are a minority business enterprise or a woman-owned business enterprise, you can also apply to get that certification through the state, but you'll need that UBI as well. And also, I'm so excited to see what projects you all have and to see all these applications. So thank you for the folks who are attending the webinar.
Hey, I'll jump in now just because I noticed a chat question that relates to equipment, and I know this is going to keep popping up, and I'll just say there's a question about purchasing a commercial scale, right, to actually measure diversion from a landfill. Pretty confident that purchasing such a scale would be considered equipment. However, paying a fee to use such a scale may well be eligible. So this is just encouraging you don't kill your great idea because you need access to something like commercial scale. Might have to pay a fee, and because that may well be eligible. Just purchasing it might well not be eligible. So really just ask the questions. The great thing that I'm really impressed with about NextCycle process is the co-design collaboration, the availability, office hours, this launch itself, it's unique. So take advantage of these guys. They're here to help, and then they can ask Commerce about all the gnarly fiscal details that we have. And then finally, I just said it, I think this really is a unique process, really, truly excited about it. I talked to our director about it, Lisa Brown, and she's excited about it. In fact, we're briefing her on our circular economy ideas and budget ideas today in a couple hours, and NextCycle was part of the briefing memo. So she will be hearing about this at the top level of Commerce. And folks are really excited about what I think is a new model to move money and really spur economic interests in a different way. So thanks to all.
Yeah, and I think I would just echo that, and just the process that we've been allowed to have to build engagement really early has been inspiring. And it just shows the kind of vision we have of like de-siloing and creating these networks or ecosystems around circular economy in Washington is just, I mean, it's such a beautiful opportunity. So looking forward to seeing all the different businesses and community ideas as well. So thanks.
Yeah, and I guess I have two things. One is kind of general, like I said, 35 to 40 grants are going to be distributed. That, that's a good amount of projects that we're looking for. And so, definitely we want everyone that's on this call to spread word to your peers and to your network about this opportunity, especially in areas that maybe aren't familiar with receiving grants. This is a program that we are trying to help those that aren't familiar navigating it. And we have the support to help you navigate it. And so let your friends know, let your peers know, let your colleagues know about this opportunity. If you have questions, utilize the resources that we have available to help you navigate the system. And then one very specific point, we talked about eligibility, and that kind of dynamic with the equipment came up. Like Rob said, please reach out to us early and often on those questions, because we want to get those resolved, ideally prior to putting any of your effort into submitting the application. And then, worst case scenario, you've applied, you've been accepted, there's been some confusion, and you spend the money, and once we receive the reimbursement request, we say, oh no, this is not eligible. And that's the worst case scenario. And so we want to just be very upfront about that right now, to say, let's resolve these gray areas before you apply, so we don't get caught in that situation down the road.
Well said, Bryce. Thank you all for your time. All the information that we've discussed today can be found on our website, or you can scan the QR code. We will be sending out a recording of today's session over the next couple of days, so be on the lookout for that. If you do have additional questions, you're not sure if your project is a fit, or need help with the application, contact us. We can't stress that enough. Our email is nextcyclewa@recycle.com, or you can schedule those one-on-one office hours. We are also on LinkedIn, so don't forget to follow us there. And if you don't plan on participating as a team, you can still get involved. You can spread the word, you can become a partner, or you can even offer mentorship. Simply fill out our Get Involved form. And what everyone's here for, the application is live on our website. Be sure to download that application packet and submit by November 16. And again, thank you to our fantastic speakers, our technical host, Emrad, and thank you to our audience for attending this session. Have a great day.